Oh, it was a big week in fantasy football land. We got all the details, everything you need to know about coming up on the Fantasy G.O.A.T.
This is the Fantasy G.O.A.T, sponsored by Casablanca Resort and Casino, like Vegas used to be.
What's up, kids? I'm Mike Davis. That's Jason Feinberg. Welcome to the Fantasy G.O.A.T. Jason, a big week in fantasy football.
So much football. So much football.
A lot of football.
Yeah.
Of course, we got to talk about the biggest storyline. Ready? Let's, in unison, say, ready? 3, 2, 1. Taylor Swift. Yes. Travis Kelce, pop star Taylor Swift joins his mom in the box in Kansas City. What did you think about that? Is this a relationship that's going to last?
No. And here's why. She needs to write music. So the best thing that can happen to them is they do whatever they're doing, whatever it is. And then she gets entirely mad at him for some reason, and then writes a whole new album that we're all going to enjoy.
It's amazing. Swifties, the fans are obsessed now with this Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
His jersey sales skyrocketed 400%. It was the best move of all time. At her concerts, I thought you were going to bring me a friendship bracelet, Jason.
Right,
That's what she does at her concerts. The way he asked her out, he actually gave his number on a friendship bracelet to her.
And that's cool. That's something you and I should probably start doing. We should, when we go to concerts, maybe we don't go for the top act, but one of the opening acts,
Yes.
we do that and try to get a date with them.
It's a good way to sell some merch. We're going to start doing that for the Fantasy G.O.A.T. So Bill Belichick said it was the greatest catch of his career. We're going to have to see if that's true. But moving on in our livestock portion. So obviously they do win that game in Chicago, Kansas City. But the two teams that we're really focused on right now, 0-3, there's 4 in the league. There's Carolina and Minnesota. But from fantasy purposes, it seems like Chicago and Denver, both sitting at 0-3, facing off this week. A lot of fantasy managers like you who have Justin Fields, they're hurting. How do we unpack this situation, having fantasy players tied to teams that are doing so poorly?
Look, I keep giving Justin Fields chances, and this was the week I was going to bench him because I'm 0-3 in the league where I have him, and then what happens? He plays Denver. Right. Denver just gave up 70 points to Miami. Was it Miami's offense? Was it Denver's defense? I don't know. But all I know is that this is the final week. Probably for all fantasy owners that have Fields.
Yeah.
If he's not dropped after this week, if he has a dud against Denver, then you're just wasting your roster spots.
It's very fascinating, and of course we got to talk about that beatdown in Denver with Miami. Okay, so Miami 70-20. Obviously, a lot of people are obsessed now with the production from Raheem Mostert and De'Von Achane. Both got 4 touchdowns. Who is the guy that you want to tie your cart to for the rest of the season? If you could have one guy on your team and you're trying to pick him up, who would it be? Would it be Achane or would it be Mostert?
So the gambler in me, and I do live in Las Vegas, the gambler in me would love Achane because he is just so explosive. I mean, Mostert is too, but he's really explosive. Yes. But he's not going to get as many carries as Mostert. So he's going to have to do a lot more with the less time.
Yeah.
So conservatively, I would have to go with Mostert.
See, and you and me, this is where we differ.
Yeah.
I basically spent all the money I had in my fab to get De'Von Achane. I thought I was coming into office today, and everybody was just going to do a slow clap when I came in.
Right.
And producer James Edward Barrickman IV, I sit next to him.
Right.
And producer James Edward Barrickman IV, he was not slow clapping when I came into the office. James, what's the deal with you? Why are you Team Mostert and not Team Achane?
I just think you way overpaid. You gave up, all of your FOB money to go get Achane, who at best is going to be a 50-50 split with Mostert. Mostert's still RB1. He's never going to actually jump Mostert on the depth chart this year. I just think you overpaid, but hey, it's only crazy if it doesn't work, right? So we'll see.
I'm all in on Miami. James, listen, you have the gambler and I have the gambler and me. James Edward Barrickman IV, even though that's a very sophisticated name, he also gambles quite a bit, ladies and gentlemen and kids at home. So, James, what's the bet? Tell me, because I already know I can read your mind. You want to do something.
Yeah, the bet here is you're on the Achane side, that he's going to finish above Mostert as far as fantasy RB rankings go. And I'm on the Mostert side. So the loser of this bet is going to have to take a doll out on a dinner date.
Doll on a dinner date.
Like appetizers and desserts and like all that kind of stuff.
You gotta say fancy French words too, like foie gras.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're going to have to treat this as you would any other girl you would take on a regular date.
Which, by the way, you've spent your whole fob money on that date that you matched, and how'd that go? Yeah. So.
All right, I'm down. We'll do it. We already got so many bets in the equation here on the Fantasy Goat. So if Achane finishes above, you're doing the date, James. Edward Barrickman the fourth, and if Mostert finishes above, I'll take a dollar.
And he's our top. He's our hole-in-the-one player.
And perfect transition.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I went all in on this guy because yes, our hole-in-one player of the week, Jason, it is De'Von Achane, the running back out of Miami. Of course, Puka Nacua was the guy for the past 2 weeks, but let's just break down the week this man had. I mean, I'm talking almost 50 fantasy points. He had 200 yards on the ground, 2 TDs. Rushing, 2 TDs receiving. I mean, this guy as a rookie, he only had 1 carry the week before. This was his real first game getting some genuine action.
Yeah.
Can he keep this up?
Not to the extent of he did that game.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure. He can keep it up.
I love the track star in him. He ran a 4.32 at the combine. It was the 3rd fastest 40. So with him, Waddle, Hill, Miami's got a lot of explosive toys to work with in Miami. But that is our hole-in-one player of the week. Jason, coming up after a short break, we're diving into GOAT Vision. We both have a lot to say about one rookie quarterback who we're really fond of. We got more details on all of that coming up on the Fantasy GOAT.
Before we head to break, in Week 4 of 2002, which former Kansas City quarterback threw 5 touchdowns and 328 yards during a win versus Miami? He finished as the week's QB1. Welcome back. Before we went to break, we asked you in Week 4 of 2002, which former Kansas City quarterback threw 5 touchdowns and 328 yards during a win versus Miami? The answer, quarterback Trent Green, who played for Kansas City from 2001 to 2007.
Welcome back, kids, to the Fantasy GOAT. Okay, so we got QBs to dive into right now for GOAT Vision. Jason, you and I are feeling and thinking alike with a certain rookie QB. You kick it off.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud. He was the number 2 pick in the draft, but, you know, rookies don't always start off so great, which we've seen with Bryce Young. And C.J. Stroud with Houston is really impressing. Part of the reason is because a lot of times they're playing from behind, so they just have given up on the run game, and he's just passing. But he's passing effectively, and he's spreading the ball out to a bunch of targets that are benefiting for fantasy reasons.
Yeah, Tank Dell, Nico Collins. I mean, a lot of guys are really balling out. This is a stat I love about him. C.J. Stroud, first player in league history to have at least 900 yards, 4 TDs, and 0 interceptions in his first 3 career starts. So, yes, this guy is playing like the number 1 pick should be playing in Bryce Young. He looks calm, cool, collected. C.J. Stroud is doing a lot of great stuff.
And we have the same problem. We both picked him up on the waiver wire because we have problems with Trevor Lawrence for you, Justin Fields for me. We mentioned this in the earlier block. I could play Stroud, but, you know, I don't know. I think I'll give him one more chance because Fields is up against the Denver defense, which gave up 70 points.
So you're going to go one more week with Fields. I'm going to go one more week with Trevor Lawrence, and that, you know, ties in nicely. I mean, listen, Lawrence, do I love the fact that he's going across the pond and playing in London against Atlanta? Yeah, I don't know. I guess it kind of is their second home. But, I mean, here's the big issue with Trevor Lawrence. You were banking on him and Jacksonville to be in the end zone, to be scoring, to be prolific this season.
Yeah.
He hasn't thrown for over 300 yards. I mean, he hasn't scored over 20 fantasy points in a certain week. So, yeah, it's concerning. And like you said, I'm going all in on Stroud after this week if he doesn't execute.
Yeah, I hear you. This is going to be a no-brainer. This is low-hanging fruit as far as who I'm disappointed in, and everybody is too, especially if you have shares of Garrett Wilson in the first round and Breece Hall in like the 3rd or 4th round, which I have a lot of, and that, of course, is Zach Wilson.
Yeah.
You know, just came off the Jewish holidays. I feel repented. You know, I have a clean slate, so my first I don't know, thing that I should probably feel bad about is, we need something to happen.
And
so,
you didn't take off for Yom Kippur, Jason.
Yeah,
so
I'm even,
my bubby's already upset at you at that one. But let's stay in New York, speaking of Yom Kippur and a lot of dreadful displays. The New York backfield, that's when we're moving into now GOAT vision for running backs. Everything there. Cook, Breece Hall, it's just a sad display. And also, Derrick Henry in Tennessee. I mean, this is a guy, I'm so happy I don't have him on my team. Last week, 11 carries for 20 yards. I mean,
so bad.
2 points for Derrick Henry. It's a sad display there. Who are you not feeling when it comes to running backs?
Well, I did pick up Josh Kelly a lot on the waiver wire. I just wanted to use him for a week or two because Eckler was out or is out, and he just is not taking advantage of the starting role. It doesn't help that that Los Angeles is a pass-happy team, so he doesn't get that much opportunity. But what he didn't do. It sounds almost like Derrick Henry stats.
Yeah, it's a similar situation.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the guys that I'm feeling for running backs, I mean, I'm taking a lot of note this week with two things. One, Alvin Kamara, he's back after that suspension. Everything went as best as it could have gone in his absence. We've seen Kendre Miller, Tony Jones Jr., they haven't done much, and Jamal Williams goes on IR. So now it really is an opportunity for Kamara to have that first round, 3-down back kind of volume. And the other thing I'm interested in is Ezekiel Elliott going to face his former team in Dallas. He had a nice 16 carries, 80 yards.
Yeah,
against a tough
revenge game.
Yeah, against a tough New York D. So, it's interesting.
Yeah, I just have just a quick shout out to James Conner, who I think is really helping Arizona stay in the hunt. They're relevant. I thought they were going to tank for Caleb Williams, but they went ahead and they won their last game, and Josh Dobbs is doing enough to keep them relevant, and looks like they're going to go for it. So James Conner is a big part of it.
And Arizona finally has his jersey in the store now, so I'm happy for Josh Dobbs.
Oh, good.
But I've never been able to get James Conner. It's one of those guys. I always want him on my team.
Yeah, me too.
Never lands on my roster.
Yeah.
Guys, coming up after a short break, we're diving into more GOAT vision. We got wide receivers. We got tight ends. Stick around.
Before we take a timeout, in week 4 of 2007, this former Indianapolis tight end found the end zone twice, racking up 6 catches for 76 yards, and he finished as the week's tight end 1. The answer after the break. Welcome back. Before we went to break, we asked you which former Indianapolis tight end found the end zone twice, racking up 6 catches for 76 yards and finishing as the week's tight end 1 in week 4 of 2007. The answer, tight end Dallas Clark, who played for Indianapolis from 2003 to 2011.
Welcome back, kids. Okay, so Jason, we're talking wide receivers, we're talking tight ends. I'm going to kick this off for us. So I also love this storyline. Adam Thielen had a great week, busted out with Andy Dalton under center in Carolina last week. Yes, sure, they're 0-3, but they go to face an 0-3 Minnesota team. His old team last week, 11 receptions, 145 yards, 1 TD, 14 targets. Great week for him. Maybe he's going to start getting some more volume there. So I'd love to see him. I've always been a fan of his. And, I'm disappointed in T. Higgins and Brandon Cooks. I mean, Higgins looked bad. He was dropping everything. It was big time disappointing for him. And, Cooks hasn't looked good. He's maybe over the hill in Dallas.
He might be cooked.
Yes.
At this point. It's funny that you say I also have T. Higgins. And then I didn't say Cooks. I said Ridley.
Yes.
Same thing. When did these guys stop learning how to catch the ball? I mean, this is crazy. It's just going right through them.
Especially where people were drafting them.
Right.
It's disappointing. Who do you like, though?
So I wasn't able to get any shares of Achane, the running back, right? But I was able to get a decent amount of shares of Nathaniel Tank Dell from Houston. This guy, another rookie, is killing it. And C.J. Stroud, that's one of his targets.
Yeah, might be his favorite target.
Yeah, his favorite target. I know they got to know each other earlier on in training and really took to each other. And so I'm all in on Tank Dell.
All right, I love it. I have him in a few leagues as well. Now, as we're moving on now to tight ends, let's talk about this. Something to just think about with a banged up Derek Carr in New Orleans. I mean, one of those sneaky situations, Taysom Hill might be able to get some QB reps for you in that tight end slot. So that's something to think about. He's always a threat on the ground, in the air, and even under center. And, I'm just disappointed in the play right now from Njoku and Dallas Goedert in Philadelphia. No, Njoku just doesn't look like Watson is targeting him as much as Peoples-Jones and Cooper and, all the other kind of people in Cleveland. But, Goddard's just not even going downfield so much in Philadelphia. It's more these like little, West Coast offense types of things. So two guys I'm kind of down on.
Well, in one of my leagues, I have Dallas Goedert. I have not played him yet because I have been playing Evan Ingram with Jacksonville, who is, I feel, just one good Trevor Lawrence game from having a really good game and then thriving once Trevor Lawrence gets his his head straight. So I'm still in on Evan Ingram, and because of that, I haven't even had to play Dallas Goedert.
Okay, see.
And then on the flip side, Darren Waller, it's a combination. It's not him completely. It's that Danny Dimes isn't throwing it to him that great, and he's not doing himself any favors by not being able to catch these balls. He should be able to catch some of these balls. So I'm still down on him.
It's a very disappointing thing, especially how so many fantasy managers were all in on Darren Waller. So a lot to keep in touch with. It's kind of similar. Running backs, tight ends, it's always a toss-up in fantasy football. Jason, good news. Coming up after a break, we're talking to a former offensive lineman. He's got a lot of insight on what it's like to really be a player and play and partake in fantasy football. We got more Fantasy GOAT action coming up after a short break. Jason, you're going to love this interview. We sat down with Tyrell Crosby, a former offensive lineman from Detroit. This guy gives us so many insights on what it's like to be an actual player in the league, but also partake in fantasy football. Take a listen. Are you like a fantasy football guy? How do you interact with fantasy football as a former player?
I love fantasy football, mainly because I'll just get all my friends, or if I think our league is 14 people right now.
And is it former players? Is it friends? Is it a mixture?
A little bit of a mixture of it's honestly mainly friends, but my old college roommates in this league. And for me, it's I will only draft my friends just because it's fun. But it gets annoying when they draft them and they do really well. I'm like, dang it. You don't even know him in real life. So it's a blast. So I have so much fun with it.
Are a lot of guys playing fantasy football and stuff like that?
Yeah. So even when I was playing, I still played, and the rule is you can't play for more than $100. And so I was always our commissioner. So it's really more so me finding a reason to kind of give my friends something stupid. It's I was first place, I'll get you an Xbox. Second place, you can just have the buy, or third place was a buy-in, which was $5 each from everybody. And then second place, I can't remember what it was, but it was just something random. And it was my way of saying because these are genuinely my closest friends. So it's hey, I appreciate you guys not changing how you treat me, because they talk so much crap to me constantly, and they never once changed how they treated me, which I love. It's always fun because they always think I'm gonna win. I'm no, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just clicking on, if I see I'll give an example of Dalton Schultz, who's one of my favorite humans ever.
Really? How do you know him?
We have the same agent, and him and I did the combine prep together, and we just have a really good friendship. And then him going to Stanford, me going to Oregon. There's always so much trash talk between.
Yeah. So he's one of your best friends.
Yeah.
And so you wanted to draft him in fantasy football, or you did?
This year I definitely did. I took him fifth round.
Wow.
But last year he was having a really good year, and one of my buddies took him. I'm like, you don't even know him.
See, I love that. So it's got to be $100 or less, Jason.
Right.
So I love it.
I wonder about that.
All right, guys, coming up after a short break, it's our favorite part of the show. It's GOAT lineup time, and somebody's creeping up on me. We got the details coming up after a short break. All right, kids, that's our favorite time of the show. It's GOAT lineup time. Real quick, rule book. We got to tell you guys all the rules. So, of course, this is when you and I go head to head. We can only use the same player one time. So
Right.
you can use that player once, I can use a player once, and that's it. And it's just total points accumulated. And I'm 2-0. And finally this week is when I got my first L to you, Jason. I only scored 43 points. 68 points, 43-68. Pretty weak performance, bad display. Ridley didn't do anything. Kincaid didn't do anything. Lamar Jackson did okay for me.
He did okay. I had almost 56 points, so well ahead of you. But I also had to play some big guns. I didn't want to go down 0-3 to you.
Right.
So I had to take some guys that I'm not going to be able to use again, like Kirk Cousins, who's always pretty reliable for points. Tony Pollard, Amon-Ra St. Brown. The only one that didn't show up was Zach Ertz for me. I thought he would have a good game. So I had to, right? I don't want to go down 0-3 to you.
No, it was good gamesmanship. I was anticipating you were going to do that, and I just picked a few bad guys. I thought Gibbs would have had a better week with Montgomery out. But that's why this week, going into week 4, I really want to go up 3-1, you know?
Yeah,
and
sure.
so I'm bringing out some big guns myself. So this is what I'm going to be doing. I got Kirk Cousins facing Carolina. They're both 0-3. They got to get a win there. So I think he's going to ball out. Josh Jacobs hasn't looked great, hopefully, against a poor run defense with Los Angeles. He can do pretty well. Deebo Samuel, and I'm also doing Parham Jr. He's finding the end zone in Los Angeles as well as a big 6'8" tight end. So that's what I'm doing.
All right, so I'm going with Matt Stafford. Didn't have a great game last game, but he'll be playing Indy. Raheem Mostert banking off of what happened, last week. And Buffalo can be run on. Breece Hall proved that in week 1. Devontae Adams, doesn't really matter who throws him the ball. He's going to have a good game. And then George Kittle, I better use him before he gets injured.
All right, there you go. I'm hoping I have a good display here. Jason, it's been fun with you. Bring me a friendship bracelet.
I'll bring it. I'm sorry.
Okay, next time. We'll see you guys next time in the Fantasy Go.